So as I was writing down the executives of all of these manufacturers of companies that I had maybe like a 3 degrees of separation relationship to. But they were people that were real to me. I was like, okay, my dad has this rep. He's in a big market. This rep is easily connected to this guy. I can make 2 phone calls and I could probably get, not 2 calls, but 2 people, and I can get to the person that I need to get to. So needless to say, we ended up doing the meeting. We didn't get the deal that time we presented it. I ended up getting the deal like a year later because it was a long sales cycle. But the important thing is that I remember going down and writing that list and coming up with all these names of people that I'm like, man, if I did this one deal, a multiple 7-figure deal, that'd be, at the time I was making $2,500 a month. So I'm like, man, that's going to be $200,000 a year in commissions. And I started getting excited. I was like, man, there's so much opportunity out here. Who are these other people I could call? Like, my creativity went through the roof because in terms of who I was thinking of, because it became real to me how much money I could make. And these weren't, Elon Musk names. This wasn't Bill Gates. I'm not like trying to become a billionaire in the first 6 months of working for Grant. And so I was actually thinking about this yesterday, and I was like, man, I want to do the show on how to get a client like that. And I believe that there are a few things that I have come up with a little list here that will put you in a very strong position to find deals like this. And if you want to get dream clients, if you want to get big clients, you have to know that there's rules to the game. And I'm going to cover some of these things. And really, like, there's one rule on here, this whole show, that I could talk about for the entire show. It's that important. And almost everybody overlooks it. So, let's get started. All right, so how to land your dream client. Number 1, the very first thing that you have to do if you want to land your dream client is you got to figure out who your dream client actually is. A lot of you don't know that because you never spent the time to do it. Who is the ideal person? Who's the ideal target? Who's the big fish? Who's the whale? Like, when you think, who could change my life? What would be a significant improvement to my current situation? It's not going out and getting one deal. Like, our guys here, we sell mostly to small businesses. 95% of our deals are to companies that are doing less than $15 million a year in sales. So what does that mean? That means like that one business is probably not going to change your life. You getting one more deal doesn't change your life. You making an extra $1,000 doesn't change your life. You going out and making $250,000 from one deal, that's a game changer. That changes everything. Like, you experience that, you feel that, like your bank account feels that, your confidence feels that, like everything is, all bets are off. So, like, you have to start thinking with, like, who is that client? And again, I'm going to, a word of caution, because the second rule is really important. Make sure that it's not something that's just like, I'm going to fly to Mars. Like, it needs to be something that is within reach and within reason. That's a sub-rule here, okay? So number 1, who is your dream client? How big is their business? Where are they? Like, who are they? You got to differentiate between us going, hey, I'm going to sell Cardone University to a chiropractor, a dentist, a software company, a HVAC person, a solar company. Like, you got to get outside of that to small business to like, okay, I'm going to go to Solar City, which is not Solar City anymore, but I'm going to go to Sunrun for solar. I'm going to go to Ford Motor Company, not the dealership down the street. Like, those are deals that are within reach, and they would have a significant change on your current situation because of the income that would be created from it. So number 1 is who. Number 2 is probably the most important thing I'm going to write down all day. Never rely on one. Never rely on one. Whoa, that was crazy. Never rely on one. I think this board needs to be cleaned. This is so important because what the tendency is you start thinking about who's my dream client, and at least for me it was, maybe not for you. I thought of one person. initially. I was like, that list of 5 was, the first one took me 20 minutes to come up with. And I was so locked in on that. And then the second one came, and then the third one came, then the fourth one came, and then something changed. And it was like, oh my gosh. Brrr, and I started, like, I came up with a list of like 100 people. So, like, the reason that this is important is because these big deals, these dream clients, these game changers, small volumes make massive differences, but they are more difficult, more challenging deals to lock down. So, like, you have to have a huge pipeline of people that fit that bill. You know, like we get messages all the time from people that, like, Grant, you could tell Grant is the only person in their pipeline. I'm like, bro, your math is all wrong. You're going to end up feeling like you failed. You're going to end up feeling rejected. Like, you're going to end up having a whole lot of problems that you could have avoided simply by not relying on just one person, one dream client. What happens when they say no? What happens when they say, man, I just won't do business with you because you're not a female? They're probably not going to tell you that. But, like, if they tell you something that you can't handle, like they're like, I buy everything from my brother and I've done that for the last 20 years. I'm not going to change for you. And then what happens is you go from, oh, this dream client to, like, my dream client's gone. Super important that you come up with a big pipeline of people that fit your dream client bill. Because now you can insert all the action, the tactics, the strategy on a big group of people, and hopefully out of the 100 or the 200 that you come up with, you know, you end up with 10 maybe that are real legitimate opportunities, and you can work through your sales cycle. So number one, you have to have a very specific, like, this is my dream client. And not specific as in this person, but like they fit these characteristics, right? So number 2, never rely on one person. Number 3, this is super important. Not as important as that, but super important. Dude, you have to be prepared for this person. The more significant they are, the more revenue they control, the harder they are going to, and the more income or the more revenue that they're responsible for, and the checks that they can write will make them more and more challenging to get to. The people that typically write the big checks are the hardest ones to get to for a reason, right? So you have to be prepared. What does that mean? That means you have to understand their problems in a way that when you speak to them, they have a different experience with you. You need to understand what challenges may be specific to their company or their industry at the time. You have to understand maybe some internal challenges that they've had within their company. Like, remember, your dream client is not the high volume client, right? Like, you know, again, the best explanation I could say is like, you're selling something to a car dealership or you're selling something to Ford Motor Company. Like, they're going to have different challenges. They're going to have different priorities. There's going to be a different expectation for you in the sales cycle that will be required to actually take that deal to a done. I mean, I've worked on big deals for a year before they happen. Like, they're just big. They're slow and they move. And, you know, Ashley Furniture, it took us 4.5 years probably before we got a deal with them. So there's a lot of complexities in that. And the more prepared you are, the better shot you're going to have, because in some cases, you only have one shot. In some cases, this dream client's going to take 3 months or 5 months or 6 months or 8 months to track down and get in front of, and then their decision to do business with you is going to be based off of one meeting that could be 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes, and everything that you have tied to this deal, big commission checks, status, confidence, security, will be tied to a very short meeting. Now, that meeting probably isn't going to be the one where they write you a check, but that meeting is going to be the one where they decide, do they want to move forward in this process with you or not? So you have to be prepared. You got to be on your game right now. Like, different level. This is like playing in high school sports or playing in the major leagues. They have different expectations, and if they're going to be writing a big check, they need to know that you understand their problems, their challenges, their strengths, their weaknesses, so that you can be the bridge that connects them with a solution that will be worth 10x what your proposal will be in order to get them as a customer. So you got to be prepared. Now, this is really important because this funnels into the next thing. You need to be an octopus. You guys know what that means? Octopus, like you need to, like that's why Grant loves the octopus, right? Because it's got 8 legs, and when it comes around things, like it just, like it's trying to eat something, all 8 legs go all around this and just consume it. And that's how you have to be with your customers. That's how you have to be with a prospect like this. Like, can you imagine, like in some cases, I remember working big Fortune 500 deals. You can't, like, email addresses are like, they're not just a database email address that you can pull. Like these are like secret contact, like protected in a treasure chest. And then you know, everybody has a different thing. Like I remember this one big company we were working with, their email. Because normally, like, if you're like, oh, well, it's jg@grantcardone.com or jglant@grantcardone.com, like, you can kind of make some guesses about what somebody's email address is. This company was first initial, last initial, and then like 6 numbers that were random. Like, it was, I'm like, there's no way you're going to be able to identify what this person's email is from the outside unless you have some in. Or you're paying a lot of money for some data service. So like being an octopus means like, dude, you have to use all 8 arms. Like you have to use every social platform. You have to use LinkedIn. You have to learn list building. You got to use networking. Like you literally have to like spread out and go, how do I actually get on this person's radar? How do I get their attention? Again, you're investing more in a dream client than you would somebody who's going to be a higher volume transaction. This is just, the rules are different. So like you have to be thinking with like, okay, where else could they be? What was this one? I was listening to a podcast. This has nothing to do with this, but kind of a little bit. What's that podcast called with those girls that were wild? Do you know which one I was talking about? Do you know which one I'm talking about?
Is it Joe Rogan?
No, it's got, there were girls and they were just like wild girls.
The Naughty Podcast.
Yeah. It was so funny to listen to though, because these girls were wild. But anyways, she was saying like she got blocked or like this guy like cut her off or something. And she ended up getting back into communication with him through like Venmo. Like, you know how Venmo has this like news feed? Like she ended up getting connected to him through Venmo, like every block number, blocked everything. And Venmo was the thing that like was the touch point. Has nothing to do with anything serious other than this is how creative you have to get with clients. You got to be thinking like, what is that little one in? Remember, when the payoff is that big, you got to be committed at a higher level to find what your in is, what that little door you can walk through is. So, like, you got to think outside the box. Like, you know, you got to think with personal visits. You got to think with handwritten letters. You got to think with, you know, packages that you could send with gifts. Like, you just have to think outside of the box in a completely different way. And the tendency is, I think for a lot of people, they get into this mode of doing these volume deals and they don't think with the big play. And in the beginning, like while I came up with this dream list, I knew that this wasn't something that I needed to spend 100% of my time on because I had to eat, right? And so like this is super important, like the strategy of this. In the beginning, when you are trying to get fed, you're trying to hit numbers, you're trying to establish yourself on your team or as a company, if you own a business, like you need to pay the bills. And those volume customers, while the revenue attached to them or the income attached to them or the commissions from them is smaller, you got to get those going in volume so that you can start getting some flow into your business. It's like once you get past that point where you're like, okay, hey, I've got a book of business, I've got some confidence, we have some momentum, then you need to start allocating time to finding these big deals, these whale deals. And again, it should be maybe 10% of your day is you're dedicated to like whale hunting Every day for an hour, I go whale hunting because I'm trying to take down somebody big. So just in terms of like how much time you allocate to this, don't go freaking all in on the whale deal, because the sales cycle's so long, and it's going to be so long before you see a check from it that that you might go hungry, or you might lose your apartment or something like that, you know? Okay. The fifth and final thing is you have to be memorable. Remember, the significance and status of the people that you're trying to reach out to, the higher it gets, the more people that are trying to get in front of them, the more problems and issues that they're handling outside in their own business, outside of any other outside vendor requests. Like these are people that are very important. They're hard to get to because they have a lot of stuff going on. And the only way that you have a shot at landing a dream client is if you're memorable and there's something different about you that they remember. Like there has to be something that you do that gives them an experience that's different than everyone else. And you can learn a lot of this by being aware and paying attention when you're out and about at restaurants, or like anytime you feel good about something, anytime something happens to you that you're like, wow, like that was a nice little bonus add-on thing that they did there. You got to bank those things in your memory, because, you know, special gifts that are not just like, you know, hey, here's a gift card, but like special gifts like, hey, I noticed that you are you like to go climbing, you like to hike, and I saw a post that you did on Instagram or LinkedIn about you climbed Mount Whitney, and then the other two that you need to climb in order to complete this trifecta of mountain climbing is Mount Denali and Mount Kilimanjaro. I went out and had a custom drawing created of all three of those mountains, and I had an inspirational quote done on the bottom. Our team actually did this for a big deal that we actually ended up landing. It took 2 years to get, but they had a custom drawing made and sent to this prospect to get on their radar, to get their attention, and to figure out like, you know, how do I be different? I think they spent, you know, $500 or something on this, but it's a big deal, a lot of value. And so you do things differently for these types of deals. So look, this was on my mind because of an experience that I had. And I started thinking through, like, it was me personally, I had this experience. It was not a good experience. And I started thinking about like, man, what would have made that experience different? And then like, man, people get caught up in these tasks or these projects that, because they're small or seemingly insignificant, they start maybe dismissing them or treating them differently. And I couldn't help but think like, man, if I had a bad experience at a car dealership, okay, a service department. Like, they're like, hey, this is insignificant. It's a first service, whatever, blah, 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 blah. We said this, you didn't do that, you know, whatever, it's all good. I ended up driving over there. They said they were going to do something for me. They were going to get me back. They were going to give me a car. They were going to give me a ride. They were going to give me whatever. They were going to get me to the office. I got there. All that changed. They acted like I was speaking Greek. And they said, you're going to have to wait here 3 hours for your car. I'm like, who in the world does that? Like, but it started getting me thinking like, man, I know that for something insignificant as an oil change or something like that on your car, it can be easy to overlook the impact of your actions. And so while the dream client sales cycle is longer, and while the dream client process has these rules that apply to it, dude, you should be treating every client you have like a dream client. And while you're trying to get a big deal, like the work required to get it is different. But dude, the truth is you should be treating every customer in a way that is memorable. You should know something about your customers. Like, you should be delivering an experience for a small customer that makes them go, wow, that was different. I feel like I'm a big whale because of how they've treated me. Grant talks about this all the time. He says, you got to treat them like millionaires. Even if they're not millionaires, treat them like millionaires. And if you treat them like a millionaire, they'll spend money like a millionaire even if they don't have it, because you've delivered to them an experience that is memorable. So look, how to land your dream client. Number one, who is your dream client? Number two, never, ever, ever rely on one dream client. You have to have a pipeline of these because a very small percentage of them are actually going to convert. You need to be prepared for these clients, their problems, their challenges, the things they're doing well, the things they need to improve. You need to become an octopus with them so that you just come all up around them, all up in their stuff, socials, using digital, using traditional. Like you need to be everywhere. And then the last thing is you need to be memorable. These are the things that you have to have, you must have if you're trying to land a big whale dream client. But you also need to be thinking with those smaller deals in these customers and figuring out how you can be memorable to them. Because all this stuff, if it'll work on a big client, it's going to work on a small client. Okay? The expectation you need to have in terms of how long it's going to take to land this customer needs to change. But dude, you should be treating customers like an octopus. Maybe on volume deals, you're having to do it with technology and automation rather than physical creativity and going out and doing things or showing up or writing letters or all this stuff. Never rely on one customer, and then that's obviously a rule that applies no matter what. And then who is your customer? Who is your target customer? These are all things that can be applied on a small scale, but they all have to be applied on a large scale as well. We got a caller on the phone? All right, let's go ahead. I wasn't going to do a caller today, but.
We got Jason from Florida.
Cool. Jason, what's going on, man?
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having me on today. Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, of course, man.
First of all, I wanted to say thanks to Grant Cardone making the audiobook 10X. Chapter 6 changed my life, and the audiobook.
Love it, man.
So I have a service business, and we're doing really well in our second year, and the opportunity came to acquire a product that will enhance our service business, but the trouble we're wrapping our head around is it's going to take away growing our service by trying to grow this product brand. And just trying to get a little bit of advice of have you ever had experience with that or how to handle that?
Okay, so I had a little trouble hearing you, but let me just repeat back to you what I think I heard, and then you can let me know. So you had an opportunity to acquire a new product line or a new way to generate revenue for the company, but there's a little bit of hesitation because you're afraid that adding this new thing will detract from the current business that you're getting right now. Is that right?
Yeah, we have a pressure washing business. Stand by.
Go ahead.
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, so we have a pressure washing business, and this is going to bring down our product costs and enhance part of our services, but we're going to have to move a lot of products, and we're going to have to build the brand amongst a lot of competition, which we've done that with pressure washing. It's Florida. We're the pressure washing capital of the world. Mm-hmm. But it's just a matter of, do we make the decision of just keep going with what we're going, or do we add this new section of the business?
Yeah, so I'm just assuming that this is something that requires a big investment up front, like buying a new machine for X, and then it's going to take so many products or services delivered in order to pay for it. Am I on the right track there?
Yeah. We're going to be making a big investment to enhance our services already. But for this product line, we're acquiring it because the people who had it before us, they're dumping it.
Yeah. So dude, look, everything falls down for me to numbers. What's the math on it? How does it work out? If nothing changed in the volume of business that you're doing right now, how long would it take to recuperate the investment? And then, if you guys were able to increase sales by 10 or 20 or 30% or 50%, like I just get into the numbers. I was on a phone call before I came in here, and I was like, look, I'm trying to make a decision to do something, and I said, look, what's worst case scenario? What's the worst thing that could happen? So we talked about it, and I said, okay, I'm good with that. Like, if you get to a point where you're like, what's the worst case scenario? And you're good with the worst case scenario, like you're like, it's not going to kill us, it's not going to put us out of business, it's not going to put us in a bad spot, and that is the absolute worst case scenario. Then I look at it and go, hey, then yeah, it's probably something I should do. Because I know that it's not going to be worst case scenario. It may be bad, but it's not worst case scenario. And based on the upside, man, there's a significant amount of upside. So I would just, for you, go to what's the worst thing that could happen if you made the decision? What's the best thing that could happen if you made the decision? And then what's something middle of the road? And then I think if you just look at things logically like that, then it will probably land you on the decision that you need to make.
All right, great. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
You got it, bro. All right. One more? Okay, next caller.
We got Robert from San Jose.
Robert, what's going on, man?
Hi, Gerald. How are you?
I'm great.
I'm doing great, too. Thanks for answering my phone.
Of course.
I just want to ask you a question about when you ask the hard questions, what part of the sales cycle? Is it pretty much all of it, right from the beginning? You ask the customer the hard questions, whether it makes sense for them to spend $5,000. I'm in a wedding business. I do flowers for weddings.
Yep.
And so just kind of like, should I ask for, let's say, what is their budget, or should I just wait until later?
Yeah, don't ask them a budget question.
Never, right?
There's always going to be different ways that you make this work, but essentially your sales process should always be some type of introduction. You should move into fact-finding to figure out what their needs are.
Fact-finding.
You ask needs assessment questions to figure out where they're at, what they need. You ask behavioral questions to figure out how they make decisions or how they've made them in the past. You tell them that you want to get their business. You tell them how much it could cost to do what you are proposing that they do. You demonstrate the product. You ask them if they've seen enough to make a decision. You handle any objections, and then you write the deal,
Right.
close the deal. So generally that is kind of our process for getting a deal done. Hard questions need to be asked throughout the process, more so when you're trying to figure out why they want something or
Yes.
how they've done something in the past.
I see.
Even if you're in the demonstration of your product or you're presenting your product, you want to ask them hard questions is this something that you could justify the investment for? Do you see any value in adding this? Do you see any value in this? Hard questions really are just direct questions.
It's just what?
It's a direct question. Oftentimes in a sales cycle, people feel like they need to dance around certain things. There's questions that you have to have answers for, and you just need to ask them. When was the last time you invested this much money in something, anything?
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing with me is it's a one-time deal. The bride and groom are about to get married 6 months from now, and I'm one of the vendors that of course they want to choose for their wedding.
Yeah.
So therefore, it's not like a before thing. It's the first time they're doing this.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
I still have to do the fact
but
finding.
you could ask them, when was the last time you spent $10,000?
Right.
And they're going to say, I bought my car. Yeah, and you have that car for 4 years now. You're going to buy another one. In your lifetime, you're probably going to buy 15 or 20 cars, and you're going to spend way more than $10,000. You get married how many times? Once, hopefully.
Yes.
Do it the right way. Lean on the pen. Let's roll. I'm the best. I got the best product. I've got the best reviews. I know exactly what you want. I got the best designers. You're going to forget you spent this money when you see how beautiful these flowers are. Let's roll. Let's do it. What's the worst thing that could happen? You try to save a couple $1,000 and you get somebody that delivers a subpar product. It could ruin your wedding. Wouldn't you rather pay a little bit more and have the confidence, the assurance, the belief that you're I know we're going to get the best quality product, the best service, the best experience, and we're going to look back and we're going to have a memorable wedding.
There you go. That's it. Yeah, that's it. That was what I need to hear. Exactly.
Okay, man. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it.
Jared, happy?
All right, guys.
Thank
Look,
you.
check it out. How to get your dream client. You need to figure this out. If you want to get big deals done, you want to play with the big boys. Number one, you got to know what a dream client looks like. Without the bullet point list, without the visualization of who this client is, you're never going to get them. The second thing is you need to remember that you never, ever, ever rely on one dream client. You got to get a big pipeline of them. You got to get a big list of them, because if just a couple of them fall, then you're going to be in great shape. The third thing is you got to like be prepared. You got to know your customer. You got to know their problems on a much higher level, so that you actually come across as an expert, somebody that they want to lean into for guidance, for advice, for consultation regarding this thing. Number 4, got it on the board right here. Got to be an octopus. Got to swallow them all up. They're going to be harder to get to than you ever thought possible. So you need to be willing to use every resource possible to get in front of them. And then number 5 is you got to be memorable. You got to be remarkable. You have to be exceptional. Like, you have to do everything in a way that leaves them with an experience that they're like, wow, that was different. So look, there it is, how to land your dream client. I hope this helped you out today. If you want to learn about how this process kind of plays out, if you want to see kind of like get a behind the scenes look at like, what does this all actually look like? Go to 10xworkshop.com. We put a free training together where you can learn from Grant, literally, how he found his dream client, and it took him from 0 to $5.5 million in less than 90 days. It's insane. Check it out. It's absolutely free. 10xworkshop.com. We will see you back here next week for another episode of Young Hustlers, where the only people who condemn the hustle are the ones who've already given up on the hustle themselves. We'll see you next time.